Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Tee It Up Grand Strand. I'm your host, Shan Coughlin, here with one of my favorite golf historians, I'm going to say now, Mr. Tom Plankers from International World Tour. Tom, in the months that we've been doing these, we've learned a lot about you and golf. Together.
I think that's good.
It is good. And we're very jealous because you've gotten to play a lot of these exclusive courses. And, of course, you lived out on the West Coast as well as being here. So you've gotten to play a lot of golf. And I'm excited because today you have brought us a little more history, some few little tidbits. And so, but it's done in a little more interesting way. So I like that.
Yeah, well, what we're trying to do, we know that the International World Tour, of course, is made up of history. The golf holes out there, it is a history lesson when you go play and have fun and enjoy yourself. But being toward the end of the year, I thought we'd talk about some history golf in the United States, something that you don't really hear about. Of course, you hear about St. Andrews in the 15th century and all that sort of thing. But a lot of people don't realize how far back golf did start or was around in the United States. Here. And it's kind of interesting. There was evidence early in golf in the United States in an advertisement in the Royal Gazette in New York in 1779 for golf clubs and golf balls. Back in 1779, someone was looking for golf clubs and golf balls. Apparently, they came from over the England area, or Scotland, but they were looking for something to whack around. And then also the first golf club being established, and this you're not going to believe, in Charleston, South Carolina.
I had heard that first one was in Charleston. And
it was the South Carolina Golf Club in 1787.
I bet we can win some trivia bets with that one.
You won one?
I said I bet we can.
Probably can. Well, here's another one you can win. The first general meeting for a golf club was in Savannah, Georgia, in the Georgia Gazette in 1796. There's another trivia contest you'll win.
There you go.
So the South did do a little bit of golf way back when. A lot of people think it was all up north, but quite a bit of it was in the South also.
So officially the first one here in South Carolina. I like it.
You like that?
I do. I do.
Well, what really started things off in the United States, really, was George Hamilton Gillespie. And he was born in 1852. And he was a Scottish-American soldier. He also was a land developer. He was a businessman. Unfortunately, he was also a politician.
Oh. Well, you had me at golfer and businessman.
But he ended up settling in Sarasota, Florida, and became the first mayor.
Okay.
So that's where you get your politician.
There you go.
He was born in Scotland, and he was educated in Oxford. He served in the Royal Company of Archers.
Archers. Okay.
And what that was he was in the bodyguard for the Queen, and they were archers at that time. So that was quite interesting. Upon his return from the colonies serving in Australia, his father, which was Sir John Gillespie, sent him to Sarasota, Florida, where his father did have some businesses he established way back when. He had Florida Mortgage Company way back then, an investment company. But apparently, since Sir John left, the business was not doing too well, so he sent his son out there. And he did get it going and got it improved and got it going very well. And it ended up that he improved the community of Sarasota very well. And business was booming, and Sarasota became on the map.
There you go.
So it was very, very interesting. But in May of 1886, he laid out 2 golf holes on his property. And this was the first golf course in Florida.
Now, I have to ask you, have you played that one too?
No, because I got to tell you more where it is now.
Okay.
Couldn't play it now if I had to. And it was the second so-called golf course in the U.S.
Okay.
He was an avid golfer. He learned the game, of course, in St. Andrews. That's where he was from. But in 1995, he built, or 1905, he built a 9-hole golf course on his property. And here's why I can't play it, because it was on this. It's now on the site of the Sarasota County Courthouse. So
yeah, that's a place you don't want to go. Yeah.
No.
And folks, you have to understand, because when we're talking to Tom, he talks about these gorgeous courses, and then he lets us in on the fact that he's played them. So now I just ask him up front. It's much more fun that way.
I don't want to be in the Sarasota County Courthouse.
No.
He also laid out some courses in Tampa, Winter Park, and believe it or not, in Havana, Cuba.
Wow. Okay.
So that was his kind of claim to fame. It was quite interesting. It dates back to 1886. Hmm. And back in 1886 also, there was another gentleman, Alexander Finley, who became the father of American golf. He was the first person in the world to score 72 in competition for 18 holes. And he did it at Mercantile Golf Club in Montrose, Scotland. He was the first one in the world to shoot 72. And
Alexander Finley.
And that was way in the back in 1886, which is quite remarkable when you think of the equipment they had.
Yeah, absolutely.
And apparently, and the golf courses they had. So it was quite remarkable what he did.
Well, especially if you think of, the people, with our friend Mitch Lawrence, who plays hickories, and the way, they talk about playing. And they do say the golf courses were not quite as long.
No, but they weren't in as good condition.
They weren't
either.
Absolutely. To make the putts on the greens, it had to be a feat.
That's something to behold. And then in 1887, in Quogue Field Club in Quogue, New York, the oldest golf club in the United States, and in continuous use is one of the oldest in New York.
Quogue Field Club. I've never heard of that.
Never have either. But the original golf course, the original course that had 18 holes, it had 18 holes, but it was taken out by a hurricane back in 1938.
Okay.
So New York just didn't have Sandy. They had some hurricanes.
Yeah.
This one must have been quite something back in 1938. They lost 3 holes to the bay, and now it was 9-hole golf course from that point on. So it ended up for 18 going into 9 holes. In 1887, Foxborough Country Club, which was founded in Foxborough, PA, is the oldest golf club in the United States in continuous use. In one place. It has never yet been shut down. So it is the oldest that has never been shut down.
Since 1887.
87. And that golf course still exists. It's never been shut down, and it's in the same original place that it was. Mm. And there's a couple others that date back in West Orange, New Jersey. The Essex Country Club. Was incorporated in 1887 in May, and a constitution was adopted in 1888, which established the first, quote, club.
Okay.
So it was an official golf club. And then in 1888, Quebo Valley Golf Club in Maine and Town and Country in St. Paul, Minnesota.
That is one I'm familiar with.
Okay, they go back to 1888.
Okay.
But it was very interesting that how the history in the United States does go all the way back and back into the 1700s, late 1700s, and really gets rolling about in the late 1800s too. We talk about people playing golf, and Woodrow Wilson, who played the most daily rounds of golf, and it was largely because of his partner, who was a Dr. Cary Grayson. And his doctor told him that daily activity would boost his health because he was in poor shape.
Right.
So he played pretty much every day. So there's a president that played almost every day.
Well, that's what we need then. So everyone's always saying they need to find time. They need to, how am I going to get out to play golf? We'll just
He played every day.
remind the doctors that they need to start prescribing that. I think I'll go see mine.
Yeah, exactly.
And that will help out. And you have a stat here. By 1910, there were 267 clubs.
In 1910, they were established clubs of 267 clubs back then.
So 1888. Let's do the math on that. So 98, 08, 22 years, 267 clubs. That's pretty astounding considering. The equipment they had to work with.
It really is, and they were not only on the East Coast, but there was a few on the West Coast.
Okay.
Most of them, of course, were on the East Coast. In the 20s, the Roaring 20s, and the early 30s, there was over 1,100 golf clubs.
All right, so from 1910 to 1932, that's only another 22 years. We went from 267 to 1,100.
1,100 golf.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we thought we had a boom a few years back, huh?
Yeah, we sure did. Here's an interesting thing that you're probably trivia can do.
Okay.
In 1922, Walter Hagen became the first Native American to win the British Open Championship.
Okay.
And that was a big deal back then because no American had ever gone across the pond and done anything like that, and he was the first.
Wow.
The game did kind of expand, and then, of course, it was halted by the Great Depression and World War II.
Okay.
But in 1990, there was 5,908 golf courses, affiliated clubs.
Right.
So after World War II, in the 1990s, things started to booming again.
Mm-hmm.
And then as now in the 2013, it was registered that there's 10,600 affiliated clubs.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting that how the history started in the United States and kept developing. It was like it went from the East Coast almost to the West. But what's interesting is the reason I'm bringing this up is World Tour in Myrtle Beach. Going back to history and time, we have St. Andrews, 15th century. That's when that started.
Right.
Pinehurst, 1895, which we have that also that you can play. So you can see how the holes we do have there date back. Pine Valley in New Jersey is 1918. Wing to Foot is 1923, which we have that hole also. The Olympic Club which is out west now, is 1924.
Right.
Colonial, which is 1936, and of course Augusta National, which is 1933. And the interesting part about that is in 1934 they held the first Masters tournament.
Just a year later.
Just a year later.
And y'all have all of Ament Corner, which is so cool. So when the Masters comes up, and we did this, the last Masters, we played right before, so we could have a little bit of perspective there, and hope we do it again this year. But it was so cool because you really do think, my gosh, yeah, I hit it there, and you can see it on TV, or if you have the opportunity to go and see it,
it is something.
Now y'all going to truck in, 3,000 a day next
probably,
year?
yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
I figured.
I'm sure Mr. Graham will foot that real quick. So what the point really being in the history of the United States is that it does date back to the late 1700s, but also Mr. Graham, in his wisdom, also went out and found golf courses that also date back all the way into the Pinehurst, which is 1895, and St. Andrews, which is the 15th century.
Which is really cool because I didn't think about that until we were sitting here. As you're playing, we've talked about World Tour before. If you took down all the plaques and nobody knew or recognized the holes, it's a beautiful golf course. Flows very evenly. I mean, you would never think that it's replicated holes from all over the world. But once you put those plaques up there, not only do you realize how that well it's really been put together, but you can also take that journey and see how the architecture changed and how it stayed the same, which is one reason why we love this game, because it's so historic, yet the way it was even started is still appropriate for today's game. We just have to get longer as the equipment gets a little better.
Right. Well, what's very interesting to me, and which I appreciate a lot, is we'll have guests that come play, and then what they do is they'll bring a friend with them, and they'll start talking about the golf course before we can even say anything about it. Oh, you got to play this hole. You can't believe you're going to play the part 3 of the TPC, and on and on. So it's gotten to be quite a thing now for the guests to play and go home and tell their friends and relatives about it, and then the next thing you know, they bring them with them, and it's quite an experience for them, and I'm really glad for it, because it is a history lesson, and it's fun.
Well, I'll tell you, so here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, we are talking about International World Tour, centrally located. So whether you're staying on the south end or the north end, very close by. You guys have some great package deals, for the spring. Well, really all year round, because you keep it very consistent, which makes it easy. Oh my gosh, there's so many changes and everyone's doing crazy things, and you guys keep it simple for everyone, which makes it so nice and easy. And this is really a place that you can go and have a lot of fun. Certainly for your low handicappers, you're going to get all you need. Trust me. Just play from the appropriate tee boxes. But if you are a higher handicap, it's even more fun, I think, because if you only get an opportunity to play courses like this once a year or twice a year, it's just a treat. And especially those folks that don't have the private country club experience, it really gives you several in one round.
Oh yeah, and
we can't not talk about the 19th hole.
We do have a 19th hole.
Not the bar either.
And it's quite unique, because we do use it as a warm-up hole, and that does give you the conditions of the golf course that you're going to play. It's the same. We maintain it and everything like that. We do use it every once in a while if we have some maintenance to do on the golf course also. But we do have 19 holes.
And I think that's awesome. And even if you have to maybe settle the bed at the end or
there you go,
something, it's great. So definitely put World Tour on your next vacation package. Tom, thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. This edition of Tee It Up Grand Strand has been produced and broadcast for you, our listeners, by the Zeus Radio Network for thegolfdirector.com. When visiting the Golf Director, navigate over to our featured golf course pages, where you'll find up-to-date information about the course conditions, specials, and much more. World Tour has an extensive page, so check theirs out. Need help with your next golf vacation? Give us a call here at 844-GO-GOLF-1. That's 844-GO-GOLF-1, 844-464-6531. All of our programming, of course, is archived for listening and viewing on demand. So to catch up on a show you might have missed, click on the TGD Radio and TGD TV tabs in the menu at thegolfdirector.com. This is Shan Coughlin, and on behalf of Mr. Tom Plinkers from International World Tour, our producers behind the glass, Big D and Jeff, we thank you for tuning in. There's more TGD golf news and information coming up next, so don't go anywhere.